Who did this to you? My hand gripped the cold metal bed rail. The fluorescent lights hummed above. The smell of antiseptic burned sharp in my nostrils. I stared at my daughter and felt something inside me turn to ice. Clara was a mask of bruises. Her left eye was swollen shut, purple and black. Her arm is in a cast, fingerprints bruised into her neck. She'd been silent when I walked in, but when I spoke, she broke. Her shoulders shook. Mom. Her voice cracked. It was Dustin. He lost at poker. His mother and sister held me down while She couldn't finish. The grief that had flooded through me when I first saw her, the shock, the maternal horror, all of it drained away in an instant. Replaced, it wasn't anger. It was colder than that. Very well, I said quietly. I'm going to show them they just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Clara's good eye widened. Mom, no, you don't understand. They'll hurt you. They'll hurt Lila. Please, just stay away from them. I leaned forward and touched her cheek, the only part of her face that wasn't bruised. Trust me, sweetheart, I'm not the woman they think I am. How could I have let this happen? How could I, Major Shirley Harris, have been locked away in a gilded cage while my daughter was being systematically destroyed? How had I allowed myself to be so blind? The answer sat like a stone in my gut. It had all started 6 hours ago. In the sterile silence of the place I called my prison, Crestwood Meadows. At 5 a.m, I'd been awake for an hour already, finishing the routine I'd maintained since boot camp: 20 wall push-ups, 50 crunches. My breath measured, my mind clear. My body was 69 years old. It did not feel frail. It did not feel weak. It felt sharp, coiled, ready. I'd been pulling on my cardigan when the young nurse Jessica, fresh out of school and still nervous, had knocked and entered without waiting for permission. She was new, her hands still uncertain as she measured dosages. Nurse, I said, my voice cutting through the quiet. She jumped. That's metformin for a hypoglycemic patient. You'll put him in a coma. Check your chart. Jessica's face went pale. She looked down, recalculated, and her hands began to shake. Oh my God. You're right. I'm so sorry. Mrs. Harris. It's Major Harris. I corrected. Not unkindly. And you're welcome. Now go fix it before someone dies. She fled. I watched her go and felt the familiar weight settle on my shoulders. My prison wasn't the room. My prison was a legal document. A single piece of paper my stepson, Adam, had tricked me into signing 2 years ago. Power of attorney. Full control. He'd told me it was just in case. A safety measure for my golden years. I'd been a fool. I'd trusted him. And now I was here. My bank accounts frozen. My freedom contingent on his approval. While he bled my savings dry paying for this place. But I was not helpless. I was simply waiting. The phone call came at 6:15. The front desk receptionist knocked, her face apologetic. Mrs. Harris, there's a call for you. It's Central Hospital. I took the phone. The voice on the other end was clipped. Professional. Careful. Is this Shirley Harris? Mother of Clara Rakes, yes. Ma'am? Your daughter has been admitted to the emergency department. She fell down the stairs. We need you to come in. Fell down the stairs. The lie was so transparent it was almost insulting. My military nurse training kicked in immediately. I knew the patterns. I knew the language. Domestic violence victims always fell. They always walked into doors. They were always so clumsy. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I said, and hung up, but there was a problem. Adam wouldn't approve my exit. He visited once a month, smiled his oily smile, patted my hand, and reminded me how lucky I was to be in such a nice facility. He wouldn't authorize an emergency release. He'd say I was confused, that I needed to stay safe. I made one call. My voice was calm, measured, the voice of a woman calling in a debt. Get me Dr. Pete Rodriguez, Chief of Staff at Central Hospital. Then a familiar baritone, rough with age and cigarettes. "This is Rodriguez. Pete. It's Shirley Harris." There was a pause. Then, quietly, "Shirley. Jesus. It's been years. What do you need? I'm at Crestwood Meadows. I need out. Now. My daughter's in your ER. And I know she didn't fall down any stairs. I'm calling in that favor from Kandahar." Pete didn't ask questions. He remembered the night I'd kept pressure on his femoral artery for 3 hours while insurgent fire prevented medevac. Some debts transcend paperwork. "An emergency specialist consult," he said finally. "I'll make it look official. 30 minutes. Thank you." "Pete, don't thank me. Just be careful. Shirley." I hung up. When the official hospital transport arrived 90 minutes later, the Crestwood manager protested, waving my admission papers, mentioning Adam's instructions. The transport nurse simply handed him the central hospital request form with Pete's signature. I walked past him, my face like stone, carrying nothing but my purse and the clothes on my back. And now I was here, standing at the foot of Clara's hospital bed, the fluorescent lights still humming, the smell of antiseptic still thick in the air. The flashback ended, and I was back in the present, the weight of the moment pressing down on me like a physical force. I picked up the chart hanging at the foot of Clara's bed and scanned it with the practiced eye of someone who'd read thousands of these. Ulnar fracture, multiple deep tissue contusions, cracked 7th rib, mild concussion. The injuries told a story, and it was a story I knew by heart. Clara started to speak, her voice small and broken. "Mom, I'm so clumsy. I tripped. And stop." My voice was sharp enough to cut. "I've triaged men hit by improvised explosive devices. I know the difference between a fall and a fist." Her face crumpled. The lie died on her lips. And then she told me everything. Dustin, his gambling addiction, the late nights at the poker table, the money disappearing, the rage that followed every loss. He'd been getting worse for months, she said, her voice shaking. The first time he'd hit her, he'd cried afterward, begged forgiveness, promised it would never happen again. But it had, again and again. And then his family had gotten involved. Brenda, his mother, a cruel, bitter woman who treated Clara like a servant, who screamed at her for every perceived slight, who told Dustin that Clara was lazy, useless, that he should keep her in line. Karen, his sister, cut from the same cloth as her mother, sharp-tongued and vicious, always ready to pile on, always eager to humiliate. And the worst part, Clara said, her voice dropping to a whisper, was what they were doing to Lila, my granddaughter, 10 years old, small for her age, quiet and afraid. Brenda's son, Kyle, bullied her constantly, taking her toys, pushing her, calling her names, and the adults encouraged it. They laughed. They told Lila she was too sensitive, that she needed to toughen up. I felt the cold fury in my chest spread, filling my veins with ice, but I kept my face still, my voice calm. "Go on." Clara hesitated, then continued. "The strangest part, Mom. Once, about a year ago, I overheard Brenda fighting on the phone with a bank. She was screaming about a trust and the Caymans. Something about untouchable money Dustin's father left. She said Dustin didn't even know about it, that it was hers, that no one could touch it. I filed that information away, a puzzle piece clicking into place in the back of my mind. A Cayman trust, untouchable money, hidden assets. Interesting. I looked down at my daughter, at her broken body and her shattered spirit, and I made my decision. My face was a mask of cold fury, but my voice was steady, deliberate, the voice of a commanding officer issuing orders. "You're staying here. You have a severe concussion, and your memory is foggy. Dr. Rodriguez will confirm it. You're safe. I'm going to your house." Clara's good eye widened. "Mom, no. They'll hurt you. Dustin will Dustin," I said quietly. is about to learn what happens when you corner a wolf and mistake her for a lamb. I'm going to your house. I'm going to babysit Lila. I leaned down, kissed her forehead gently, and walked out of the room. The fluorescent lights hummed behind me. The smell of antiseptic faded, and as I stepped into the hallway, I felt the old familiar weight settle onto my shoulders, the weight of a mission, of a plan, of a promise I intended to keep. They had made the biggest mistake of their lives, and I was going to show them exactly what that meant. The address led me to a 2-story house in Dorchester. From the outside, it looked normal enough, but when I opened the front door, the smell hit me first. Stale beer, old food, something sour and unwashed. I stepped inside and had to suppress the urge to gag. The living room was a disaster. Empty pizza boxes stacked on the coffee table, dirty dishes piled on every surface. The carpet was stained and crusted with God knows what. 2 women were sprawled on a sagging sofa, eyes glued to a television blaring some reality show. The older one, heavy-set, with dyed blonde hair and a cigarette dangling from her lips, barely glanced at me. The younger one, thinner, with dark roots showing through bad highlights, didn't look up at all. "Oh, it's you." The older woman's voice was flat, bored. "Brenda," I assumed. "Well, Clara's not here. You can sleep on the pullout. The kitchen's a mess. Make yourself useful." I set my suitcase down carefully and didn't respond. Then I heard it. A small, choked sob from somewhere deeper in the house. I walked past the women without a word and followed the sound. It led me to a small room off the kitchen, barely more than a closet. Inside, sitting on the floor in the corner, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Pale skin, dark circles under her eyes. She was clutching a headless doll, staring at nothing. "Lila." I was about to kneel down and speak to her when I heard the stomp of feet behind me. A boy, maybe 10 years old, burst into the room. He was big for his age, with a mean twist to his mouth. He saw Lila and grinned. "Hey, stupid. You still crying?" He reached down and grabbed the doll from her hands. She made a small, helpless sound but didn't resist. The boy held the doll up, laughing. "This is a piece of junk anyway." He grabbed the doll's remaining arm and started to twist it, preparing to rip it off. I moved swiftly, muscles honed over decades, snapping into calculated action. In 3 precise steps, I intercepted and grabbed Kyle's wrist, applying a sharp pain compliance hold calibrated to incapacitate without injury. His hand released immediately, dropping the doll. "We do not steal." My voice was quiet, conversational. The boy wailed. Dropping the doll, I released him and handed it back to Lila. The sound brought the women running. Karen burst into the room, her face twisted with rage. "You crazy old bitch, get off my son!" She lunged at me, nails extended like claws, going for my face. I sidestepped with fluid grace, caught her wrist, and pressed on a nerve. Her hand went numb, and she collapsed on her knees. Stunned. "You're telegraphing your moves, dear," I said calmly, "and your nails are filthy." Brenda appeared in the doorway, her face purple with fury. She grabbed the iron poker from the decorative fireplace set in the living room and brandished it like a weapon. "I'll kill you," she swung it at my head, unfazed. I disarmed her effortlessly. Then, using the stone mantle as leverage, bent the iron poker 45 degrees. The groan of twisted metal froze them. "This house is under new management," I said. My voice was calm, matter of fact. "Rule 1, you will not touch Lila. Rule 2, you will not touch me. Rule 3, this hovel is a health hazard. Karen, you're on floors. I want this carpet vacuumed by tonight. Brenda, you're on dishes. Every single one. And Kyle, you're going to sit in that chair and you're not going to move until I tell you to." Kyle opened his mouth to protest. I looked at him. He closed it. Brenda found her voice first. She was shaking, but her rage was still there, simmering under the surface. You can't come into my house and… I can. And I have. I walked to where Lila was still sitting and helped her to her feet. Come on, sweetheart. Let's get you cleaned up. I led her out of the room, leaving the three of them standing there in shocked silence. Lila's hand was small and cold in mine. I could feel her shaking. It's okay now, I whispered. Grandma's here. For the next 2 hours, I cleaned. I gave Lila a bath, washed her hair, and found clean clothes in a dresser that looked like it hadn't been touched in months. I made up a small bed for her in what had once been a guest room. She didn't speak the entire time, just watched me with wide, frightened eyes. Downstairs, I could hear the women moving around, whispering furiously. I ignored them. At 6 o'clock, Brenda appeared in the doorway. Her face was cold, calculated. She was holding a package of ground beef. It was gray around the edges, the smell faintly sour. Make dinner, she said, dropping it on the counter. Don't waste it. I looked at the meat, then at her. She smiled, a mean little twist of her lips. Of course. I took their insult in stride, unwrapped the foul meat in the filthy kitchen, and separated a small, pristine portion for Lila and myself. The rest went into a skillet where I poured in half a bottle of Satan's Revenge ghost pepper hot sauce, a fiery poison. At 7, I called them to the table. Brenda, Karen, and Kyle came in. Smug and triumphant. They thought I'd given up, thought I'd submitted. They loaded up their plates with heaping portions of the sloppy joes. I served Lila and myself small portions from the clean pan. Then I sat down and waited. Brenda took the first bite. A huge, aggressive bite. Karen and Kyle followed. There was a beat of silence. Then Brenda's face went red. Karen started coughing. Kyle made a sound like a dying animal. Water, Brenda screamed. Water. They lunged for the sink, shoving each other out of the way, gulping straight from the faucet. Kyle was crying. Karen was gagging. Brenda's eyes were streaming. I took a calm bite of my sloppy joe. It was actually quite good. I gave Lila a small bite from her plate. She smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. What's wrong, Brenda? I asked pleasantly. Is it too flavorful? Brenda turned to me, her face a mask of rage and pain, tears streaming down her cheeks. She opened her mouth to scream, but nothing came out except a strangled wheeze. I took another bite. Rule 4, I said. Don't waste food. I was awake when Dustin Rakes came home. I heard the car first. The engine too loud. The brakes squealing. Then footsteps. Uneven and heavy. The front door didn't open. It was kicked. Clara, the voice was slurred, thick with alcohol and rage. Get me a beer. The door swung open and he staggered in. Dustin Rakes, 42 years old, 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, running to fat. His shirt was untucked, his tie loose and crooked. His face was flushed red, his eyes bloodshot. He smelled like whiskey and cigarettes and something sour underneath. He saw me and stopped, squinted, swayed slightly. Who the hell are you? I'm the babysitter, I said calmly. His face twisted. The what your wife is in the hospital. I'm here to watch Lila. He stared at me for a long moment, his brain processing through the alcohol fog. Then his face went dark. You're the old bitch Clara's always crying about. Her mother. That's correct. He took a step toward me, his hands clenched into fists. Get out of my house. No. The word hung in the air between us. He wasn't used to being told no. He moved fast for a drunk man, his arms sweeping up in a wide, drunken backhand aimed at my head. I stood and moved inside the swing, stepping toward him instead of away. His fist passed harmlessly over my shoulder. I used his own momentum against him, my hands on his arm and chest, guiding his weight forward and down. He went sprawling over the coffee table, which collapsed under his weight with a crash of splintering wood. For a moment, he just lay there, stunned. Then he roared, a sound of pure animal rage. He pushed himself up and lunged at me, arms outstretched, trying to grab, to overpower, to hurt. I stepped aside. Simple footwork. Nothing fancy. As he passed, I drove my elbow hard into his solar plexus. Right at the cluster of nerves beneath the sternum, the air exploded from his lungs in a single, shocked wheeze. His legs buckled, and he collapsed to all fours, choking and retching. "You know," I said conversationally, standing over him. "My daughter didn't fight back. I'm not sure why. Perhaps she thought you'd change. Perhaps she was protecting Lila. But I have no such constraints." While he was still gasping for air, I grabbed a fistful of his hair. Leveraging him upward and forward, I marched him down the hallway to the guest bathroom, the one with the unflushed toilet, crusted with filth. The bowl stained brown and yellow. The smell was overpowering. I shoved his face toward it. "You like this?" I asked. My voice conversational. "You like treating women like filth." He tried to pull back, but he still couldn't breathe properly. Couldn't get leverage. I held him there, his face inches from the bowl. "This is your house. Dustin, this is your filth. Look at it." He made a strangled sound of protest. "This is what you've made. For your wife, for your daughter. This is what you are." I reached over and flushed the toilet. The water swirled up, splashing his face. He screamed, or tried to. It came out as a choked gasp. I released him and stepped back. He scrambled away from the toilet, wiping his face, retching. I walked to the sink, washed my hands carefully. When I turned around, he was leaning against the wall, his chest still heaving. His eyes were full of hate. "I'm calling the cops," he said, his voice raw. "You assaulted me. Go ahead." I walked past him, back to the living room, and picked up my book. I heard him stumbling to the kitchen, heard the sound of the phone being picked up. I turned a page and kept reading. 15 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. 2 officers, a young one, barely out of the academy by the look of him, and an older one with gray hair and tired eyes. The older one's nameplate read Miller. Dustin was still in the kitchen, his face cleaned up but still wet. He pointed at me with a shaking hand. "That crazy old bitch assaulted me. She attacked me in my own home. Arrest her." The young officer looked at me uncertainly. I was still sitting in the armchair, book in hand, looking like someone's grandmother. Sergeant Miller was studying me with narrowed eyes. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "can you tell us what happened here?" I set my book down and stood up. When I moved, I made sure to move slowly, carefully, like the 69-year-old woman I was supposed to be. I smiled at Sergeant Miller. "Of course, officer. I came to help with my granddaughter while my daughter is in the hospital." Mr. Rakes arrived home intoxicated and became aggressive. He swung at me. I defended myself. Miller was still staring at me. Something was clicking in his brain. I could see it. "Ma'am," he said quietly. "Have we met before?" I tilted my head slightly. "Perhaps at the VA?" His eyes went wide. "Holy hell. Are you Major Harris from the VA? You stitched up my partner in 95. "Sergeant Miller." "I was with the state police then." I smiled. "Genuine this time. Good to see you again." "Sergeant. I wish it were under better circumstances." Dustin was sputtering. "What? No, she attacked me." Miller held up a hand. "Mr. Rakes, let the lady speak." I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. I'd taken photos at the hospital. Clara's face, her arm, the bruises. I held the phone out to Miller. "This is what Mr. Rakes did to my daughter yesterday. She's currently in Central Hospital with a fractured ulna, multiple contusions, and a cracked rib. She'll be there for at least 72 hours. Miller took the phone. His face went very still as he scrolled through the photos. The young officer looked over his shoulder and went pale. I continued, my voice calm and reasonable. "I'm 69 years old. Sergeant. Mr. Rakes is 42 and outweighs me by at least 80 pounds. He came home drunk and attacked me. I defended myself using minimal force. I did not strike him. I did not injure him." Miller looked up at me, then at Dustin, then back at the photos. "Mr. Rakes," he said, his voice flat and hard. "Did you do this to your wife?" She fell down the stairs. Dustin's voice was desperate now. Miller's jaw tightened. He handed my phone back to me and turned to face Dustin fully. "Mr. Rakes? You're lucky I'm not arresting you on this evidence alone. The DA would love these photos. You understand me?" Dustin's mouth opened and closed. "I'm going to walk out of here now," Miller continued. "And I'm not going to file a report about this call. But if I come back to this address, if I hear about any problems, if I see any more pictures like these, I'm coming back with handcuffs and a warrant. Do you understand me?" Dustin was shaking. Not with rage anymore. With fear. He nodded. "Good." Miller looked at me. "Ma'am, will you be safe here tonight?" "Perfectly safe, Sergeant. Thank you for your concern." He nodded once, tipped his cap, and gestured to the young officer. They left. I heard their car pull away. Dustin stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by the wreckage of his shattered coffee table. His face was a mask of humiliation and impotent rage. He looked at me like he wanted to kill me but was terrified to try. "Go to bed, Dustin," I said quietly, "and sleep on your side. You'll breathe easier." He fled up the stairs without another word. I picked up my book, sat back down in the armchair, and continued reading. Outside, the first hints of dawn were starting to lighten the sky. Tomorrow, I thought, would be interesting. The house had settled into a new rhythm over the past 3 days. A tense, brittle rhythm built on fear and barely suppressed rage. Brenda no longer barked orders at me. Karen kept her distance, cradling her still numb hand. Kyle stayed in his room, and Dustin moved through the house like a ghost, his bruised face a constant reminder of his humiliation. But I knew this peace wouldn't last. Fear, when it fermented long enough, turned into something more dangerous. Desperation. I was proven right on the 4th morning. Brenda appeared in the kitchen doorway while I was making breakfast for Lila. Her expression was different, softer, almost apologetic. The hair on the back of my neck stood up immediately. "Shirley," she said, her voice syrupy with forced warmth, "I want to apologize. For everything. For how we've treated you and Clara." She wrung her hands, playing the role of contrite matriarch. "I know I've been difficult. The stress of this household has made me into someone I don't recognize." I said nothing, just watched her with careful attention. "I made you some tea," she continued, producing a delicate china cup from behind her back. Steam rose from the pale liquid. Chamomile. Very calming. A peace offering. She held it out. I took it, raising it toward my face as if to sip, and caught the scent. Chamomile. Yes, but underneath something acrid and bitter. Chemical. I'd worked in enough field hospitals to recognize crushed sleeping pills poorly dissolved in hot water. "How thoughtful," I said, moving toward the table. My foot caught the chair leg entirely on purpose, and I stumbled. The scalding tea arced through the air and splashed directly onto Karen's bare foot as she stood in the doorway. Karen screamed, jumping back as the hot liquid splattered across her skin. "You stupid-o." "My apologies," I said, my voice quavering with false frailty. "My hands are so shaky these days." Brenda's expression flickered just for a moment from false sympathy to pure, undisguised hatred. Then the mask slid back into place. "No harm done. Perhaps you should rest." "Surely. Perhaps I should." I retreated to my room. But I didn't rest. The poisoned tea was an escalation. Proof they were planning something. I needed to know what. That night, after putting Lila to bed, I crept back out into the hallway, positioning myself in the shadowed alcove near the kitchen, where I could hear but not be seen. They were all there. Brenda, Karen, and Dustin. Their voices were low, urgent, desperate. "It's the only way," Brenda was saying. "We can't have her here. She knows too much. And if she talks to the police again, if she shows them more evidence, we're finished." "So what do you want me to do?" Dustin's voice was sullen, resentful. "She's got that cop on her side. And she broke me. Ma, I can't." "You're pathetic." Karen spat. She's an old woman. One old woman. And you let her destroy you. Then you fight her, both of you. Shut up. Brenda's voice cut through the bickering like a blade. It's the only way. Dustin, you go in first. Knock her out. We'll follow with the rope and tape. We'll tie her up. Call Crestwood. Say she's psychotic. And once she's back in that place, locked up, medicated. She paused. She won't be a problem anymore. And if she fights back, Dustin asked, she won't. Because you'll hit her hard enough that she can't. Silence. Then Karen, what about the kid, Lila? What about her? Brenda's voice was cold. She's not going to remember any of this. And if she does, who's going to believe a traumatized 8-year-old? I'd heard enough. I retreated back to my room, my mind already working through the tactical situation. Kyle's closet yielded an aluminum baseball bat, 30 inches long. Lightweight, but solid. I stripped the bed, arranging pillows into a human-shaped lump, then positioned myself behind the door, bat in hand. Breathing steady and controlled, the clock on the nightstand glowed 11:45. I waited. At 11:58, I heard the soft creak of floorboards in the hallway. Footsteps. Heavy. Male. Trying and failing to be quiet. Dustin. My grip tightened on the bat. The door creaked open slowly. Dustin. Moving with exaggerated care. Trying to be stealthy. He crept toward the bed. Toward the lump of pillows and blankets. I stepped out and swung. The bat connected with the back of his knee with a sharp crack. His leg buckled. As he fell, I hit him again in the shoulder, targeting the brachial plexus, disabling his arm. He went down, stunned and gasping. I worked fast. The rope they'd planned to use on me was lying just outside the door, neatly coiled. How considerate of them. I used it to bind him securely to the bed. I stuffed a dish towel into his mouth and secured it with duct tape. He was conscious now, his eyes wide with fear and pain, making muffled sounds behind the gag. I dragged him onto the bed, positioning him exactly where I'd been lying moments before. Then I turned off the lights. In the darkness, I positioned myself in the corner farthest from the door, my phone in my hands, camera app open and recording. I took a deep breath and screamed. It wasn't my voice. It was Clara's voice. The way she must have sounded in this house 100 times before. Terrified. Broken. Pleading. No, Dustin, stop. He's got me help. Brenda and Karen, waiting in the hall with weapons, a golf club, and a heavy frying pan, heard this Brenda's voice. Sharp with vicious excitement. He's got her. Let's go. Finish this. The door burst open. 2 figures rushed in, silhouetted against the hallway light. Brenda, wielding a golf club. Karen, carrying a heavy cast-iron frying pan. They saw the figure on the bed, bound and struggling, making muffled sounds behind a gag. They thought it was me. You old bitch, Karen shrieked, raising the frying pan above her head. This is for my foot. The pan came down with brutal force, connecting with Dustin's ribs. The muffled scream behind the gag was agonized. Disparity. You're done. Brenda swung the golf club like a woman possessed, bringing it down on what she thought was my prone form. Once, twice, 3 times. The sickening sound of metal on flesh filled the room. Dustin was thrashing now, trying to scream through the gag. But they were lost in their rage, in their bloodlust, in the pure satisfaction of finally hurting the person who'd humiliated them. I let it continue for 10 more seconds, long enough to capture everything. The blows, the screams, the savage glee in their voices. Then I reached over and flipped on the light switch. The sudden brightness was blinding. Brenda and Karen froze mid-swing, their weapons raised, their faces twisted with exertion and fury. And slowly, very slowly, they lowered their eyes to the figure on the bed. Dustin stared back at them, his face a mask of blood and terror. The golf club fell from Brenda's hands and clattered on the floor. My, I said from my corner, holding up my phone so they could see the glowing red recording light. What a family. I have the whole thing on video. Karen made a sound like a wounded animal. Brenda's face went gray, then white, then a sickly shade of green. I crossed the room calmly and picked up the landline phone on the nightstand and dialed 911 and breathy. 911, yes. I need police and an ambulance. My name is Shirley Harris. There's been a terrible assault. A mother and sister have just beaten their son nearly to death. My son-in-law. They just kept hitting him. I tried to stop them, but I'm so frightened. Please hurry. Please. I gave them the address, my voice breaking convincingly, and hung up. Then I looked at Brenda and Karen, who stood frozen in the harsh light, their weapons at their feet, their hands still stained with their own son's blood. The police will be here in approximately 4 minutes, I said conversationally. I suggest you don't run. It will only make things worse. Neither of them moved. They just stared at Dustin, at what they'd done, at the ruins of their carefully constructed hierarchy. In the distance, I heard the first wail of sirens. I walked to the bed and carefully loosened Dustin's gag, just enough so he could breathe properly. He was crying now, soft, broken sobs. You're going to be fine, I told him quietly. The paramedics will take care of you, but you should know every blow they landed on you tonight. Every moment of this is recorded, and I'm going to make sure the whole world sees exactly what kind of family you really are. The sirens were getting closer. I sat down in the chair by the window and waited for justice to arrive. The chaos was controlled. Professional. Paramedics rushed in with stretchers. Police secured the scene, their radios crackling. Brenda and Karen were handcuffed, sputtering desperate protestations. She tricked us. That crazy old woman set us up. Sergeant Miller arrived within minutes, his face grim as he surveyed the scene. Dustin on a stretcher, face pulverized. Brenda and Karen in handcuffs. Me, sitting calmly by the window, phone in my lap. He approached carefully. Ma'am, are you all right? I'm fine. Sergeant. I held out my phone. But you should see this. He watched the video in the hallway. When it finished, he shook his head slowly. Ma'am, you're a victim here. A witness. We'll need your full statement. But... He glanced at the patrol cars. You just solved our case. I certainly hope so. Sergeant. 3 days later, I sat in Clara's hospital room watching the news. She'd been moved to a regular room, color returning to her face. The anchor reported Dustin Rakes remains in the ICU with multiple broken ribs, fractured orbital bone, and severe internal bruising. His mother, Brenda Rakes, and sister, Karen Mitchell, faced charges of aggravated assault and conspiracy. Brenda Rakes suffered a mild heart attack yesterday and has been transferred to the cardiac ward under police guard. Clara turned to me. Mom, what did you do? I gave them enough rope to hang themselves? Sweetheart. And they took it. My phone buzzed. An unfamiliar number. Ms. Harris. This is Robert Fielding. I represent Brenda Rakes and Karen Mitchell. I wonder if we might discuss potential resolutions. His voice was tight, professional, but desperate underneath. I'm listening. Mr. Fielding. The video evidence you possess is devastating to any defense. Our legal team believes it would be an execution of their case in court. We'd like to discuss alternatives. What kind of alternatives perhaps we could meet? Somewhere neutral. How about the cardiac ward at Central Hospital tomorrow? 2 o'clock. I'll arrange it. The cardiac ward was quiet when I arrived. Brenda's room was at the end of the hall. The tableau was perfect. Brenda in her hospital bed. Oxygen tube in her nose. Face gray and defeated. Karen in a chair. Eyes hollow. Dustin in a wheelchair, wrapped in bandages. Face swollen and purple. They were shadows. Broken. Exactly what they'd tried to make Clara. The lawyer, Robert Fielding, stood by the window, sweating despite the cool air. Ms. Harris, thank you for coming. Let's not waste time. Mr. Fielding, you want terms? Let's talk terms. Brenda's voice was weak. What do you want? I folded my hands, speaking with calm precision. 3 things. First, Dustin signs divorce papers immediately. Clara gets full custody. Second, he terminates all parental rights to Lila. Third, you pay Clara $500,000 for pain and suffering. I held up my phone. Do those 3 things. And I forget to email this video to the district attorney. It stays buried. Brenda's face twisted. We're broke. Dustin gambled it all. We don't have that kind of money. Her monitors beeped frantically. Don't lie to me. Brenda. The room went cold. I leaned forward, smiling. Let's talk about the Rakes Family Trust. The one in the Cayman Islands. Account number 774-B. The $1.5 million your late husband left. Ring any bells? Absolute silence. Dustin's head snapped toward his mother. What money? Karen stood slowly. What money? Mother, I don't know what she's talking about. Brenda wheezed. Brenda. My voice remained pleasant. You have a choice. Pay me $500,000, leaving you with a comfortable $1 million to fight over, or I send this video to the DA, the judge, and every news station. And then I send your Cayman account number to the IRS. Your choice. Dustin stared at his mother with pure betrayal. You told me we were broke. You told me I had to keep gambling. You made me hurt, Clara. And you had $1.5 million the whole time? Shut up. Dustin, $1.5 million. He tried to lunge forward, collapsing with a cry of pain. Karen's face went cold. While I was begging for grocery money. You were sitting on a fortune. The lawyer cleared his throat. Mrs. Rakes, I really think you should consider Ms. Harris's offer. Brenda looked at her children, at the greedy, murderous expressions on their faces, at the way they were already calculating their shares. She saw she'd lost everything. Her power, her control, her family. She turned to the lawyer, barely whispering, Pay her. Mother Karen started. Pay the witch and get her out of here. Brenda's voice rose to a shriek. Her monitors erupted in alarms. A nurse and doctor rushed in. I stood, smoothing my cardigan. I'll expect the paperwork within 48 hours. Divorce papers signed, parental rights terminated, and a cashier's check for $500,000. Once I receive all 3, I'll delete the video. Do we have an understanding? The lawyer nodded frantically. Yes. We'll have everything prepared. Excellent. I turned to leave. Then paused. One more thing. If any of you ever go near my daughter or granddaughter again, I will release that video to the world. I will make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of people you are. Do you understand? No one answered, but I saw the understanding in their eyes. The fear. I walked out with my back straight and my head high. Justice wasn't always pretty, but it was necessary. And it was finally, perfectly, mine. When the local news labeled me a hero, Grandma, I almost laughed. They knew nothing of the real battles I'd fought, sleepless nights, navigating betrayals, charting each step like a military operation. The headlines gushed over Grandma Stops home invasion, while reporters smiled through segments tailored for amusement between politics and weather. But Jessica Chen, an investigative journalist, dug beneath the narrative. She called me a week later, voice sharp, too perceptive for comfort. Major Harris, I think you've been a victim of elder financial abuse, she said. Your stepson Adam filed competency paperwork, but can anyone who watches that video honestly believe you're incompetent? With Clara's persistent encouragement, I had to use our settlement money. I hired Grace Cho, a top elder law attorney. Grace went after Adam's power of attorney, followed the money Adam had hidden in my name, and compiled every call, every signature I didn't remember authorizing during my time at Crestwood. Adam was confident at first. He tried charm, then bluster. He hired experts to declare me unfit, but I watched Jessica's front-page story transform public sentiment overnight. My situation no longer a family embarrassment, but a cause that angry readers latched onto. Crestwood fielded press calls, strangers sent cards. Adam lost the cloak of plausible deniability. Grace orchestrated everything. In court, I wore Navy, a nod to my service years, and pinned on a silver medal Lila insisted I bring for luck. Adam sat across from me, smug until Grace started questioning. She highlighted the fraudulent paperwork, the retirement package Adam had described, and let me lay out Adam's careful isolation. The accounts drained, the signatures I'd never meant to give. The courtroom held its breath. Major Harris. Did you ever exhibit incompetence at Crestwood? Grace asked. I was alert, physically fit, corrected medical errors, and orchestrated an escape to rescue my daughter. I never once drifted. My voice was steady. Across the aisle, Adam tried not to look nervous. Grace called Dr. Pete Rodriguez. Pete recounted my work in the field, the grit I showed under fire, the respect I'd earned from doctors decades younger than me. Major Harris displays exceptional judgment and mental acuity, far beyond her peers. The judge didn't hesitate. Mr. Harris, this was exploitation. The power of attorney is revoked. Your assets are frozen. A full criminal investigation into elder financial abuse will begin immediately. And Major Harris is awarded full restitution and damages. Adam's face turned ashen. Around us, soft gasps and whispers. Justice had not only been served, but seen. We moved into the penthouse 2 weeks later. Sunlight streamed through wide glass. Clara decorated Lila's new room with stars and ocean paintings. Lila taped her drawings beside the kitchen and turned the living room into a world of adventure. As I unpacked, peace crept in a slow, unfamiliar luxury. The phone rang. Crestwood's number flashing across the screen. I answered, listening as the billing department asked when Adam would resume my payments. I watched Lila racing paper boats across the hardwood. Send the bill to Adam's attorney. I replied kindly, then hung up. Clara grinned from the kitchen. Mom, are you finally happy? More than happy, I thought. After years of discipline, loss, and struggle, I felt a full circle close justice for Clara, for Lila, for myself. That afternoon, we watched the ocean from our balcony. The old wounds ached less. Clara sat beside me, Lila in our laps. The laughter finally real and unburdened. Crestwood was just a layover. I said quietly, more for myself than anyone else. I'm home. And that was the truth. For the first time, I belonged to myself again, Major Shirley Harris. Survivor. Mother. And at last, free. In the end, I learned that strength is not measured by how hard you can strike, but by how fiercely you can protect the ones you love. Standing in that sunlit penthouse, watching Clara laugh with Lila, I realized something profound. Justice is not vengeance. It is restoration. It is reclaiming what was stolen and building something beautiful from the ashes. Sometimes, the greatest battles we fight are not for ourselves, but for those who have forgotten their own power. If you have ever felt broken, remember this: you are not alone. You are stronger than you know. And if this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to remember their own strength. And don't forget to comment, subscribe, and visit the Senior Life Stories channel to discover more heartfelt tales of love, justice, and redemption, because here, every story begins and ends with love.